What if the happiest period in human history happened before anyone invented a job? It sounds ridiculous. Every successful civilization you've ever learned about was built on work. Farmers worked, builders worked, kings demanded work. Today, nearly every adult on Earth wakes up knowing exactly where they need to be tomorrow morning. So how could an entire species survive for almost 300,000 years without employment, salaries, schedules, or even the idea of a career? The strange part is, archaeologists weren't trying to answer that question. But while excavating ancient camps buried beneath layers of earth, they accidentally uncovered evidence that forced them to rethink one of the biggest assumptions about prehistoric life. They expected to find signs of endless struggle. Instead, they found something that shouldn't have existed at all. Jewelry, musical instruments, beautiful artwork hidden where almost nobody would ever see it. And those discoveries raise an uncomfortable question. If ancient humans were supposedly fighting for survival every minute of every day, who had the time to create all of this? That mystery becomes even stranger when you compare it with your own life. Think about everything waiting for you tomorrow. Messages, meetings, bills, deadlines, responsibilities. Before your feet even touch the floor, your brain is already running through a checklist. Now erase all of it. No clock, no boss, no paycheck, no calendar telling you where to be. Imagine opening your eyes as the first sunlight reaches the entrance of a small shelter built from wood, hides, and branches. The fire from last night is still glowing beneath warm ash. Somewhere nearby, you hear children laughing before breakfast. An older hunter quietly sharpens a stone blade while another person casually adds wood to the fire. Nobody looks stressed. Nobody is rushing anywhere. Not because life is easy, but because life follows nature instead of a schedule. And that's where modern people often misunderstand prehistoric humans. We imagine the ancient world as one endless emergency. Every movie shows people sprinting away from predators, searching desperately for food, or barely surviving another freezing night. It's a powerful image. The problem is, archaeology doesn't fully support it. In fact, the more researchers studied prehistoric camps, ancient skeletons, and traditional hunter-gatherer societies across different continents, the more they noticed something completely unexpected. Human beings weren't surviving because they worked every waking hour. They survived because they became incredibly good at understanding the world around them. Imagine walking through a forest where every tree tells you something. Every footprint is a sentence. Every bird call is a warning. A broken branch isn't random. It's evidence. A change in the wind isn't just weather. It's information. Long before humans invented writing, they had already learned to read nature itself. Generation after generation, parents passed that knowledge directly to their children until entire landscapes existed inside human memory. They didn't carry maps. They became the map, which leads to an even bigger mystery. If survival depended on knowledge instead of non-stop labor, what were people actually doing with the rest of their day? Archaeologists believe they found the answer, and surprisingly, it wasn't hidden inside weapons or hunting tools. It was hidden inside beauty. Across Europe, Africa, Asia, and Australia, researchers kept uncovering objects that simply didn't make sense if prehistoric life was nothing more than an endless struggle. Animal bones carved with astonishing detail. Stone tools polished far beyond what was necessary. Shell necklaces carried from coastlines dozens of miles away. Red ochre carefully collected and processed to decorate bodies that would eventually disappear forever. None of these objects caught more animals. None made hunting easier. In fact, many required hours, sometimes days, of patient work. So why would someone living in one of the harshest environments in human history spend precious time making something beautiful instead of something useful? Before scientists could answer that question, they stumbled across an even more astonishing discovery, one hidden so deep beneath the earth that it remained untouched for tens of thousands of years. And what they found inside would completely change our understanding of what ancient humans were really doing when they weren't trying to survive. What researchers discovered inside those caves wasn't just art. It was evidence that prehistoric humans thought about the future in ways no one expected. Some paintings were created so deep underground that reaching them meant crawling through narrow passages in complete darkness, carrying nothing but a small stone lamp fueled by animal fat. Imagine spending hours making that dangerous journey, not to find food, not to escape a predator, but to paint. Why? Archaeologists still debate the answer. Some believe these caves were sacred places. Others think they were used to teach young hunters. A few even suggest they were humanity's first storytelling theaters. But here's the fascinating part. No matter which theory is correct, they all point to the same conclusion. Ancient humans had enough time to think beyond survival. And the surprises don't end there. At one archaeological site in Germany, scientists uncovered a flute carved from the wing bone of a vulture, dating back roughly 40,000 years. It wasn't a simple whistle. It had carefully placed finger holes designed to produce different musical notes. Stop and think about that. While mammoths still walked across parts of Europe, someone sat down, patiently carved an instrument, and played music beneath the open sky. Music means gatherings. Gatherings mean celebration. Celebration means people weren't living in constant fear every moment of the day. Then researchers found something even stranger. Many prehistoric camps contain toys, miniature spears, tiny bows, and small animal carvings made for children. These weren't survival tools. They were learning tools. Instead of sitting inside classrooms, children learned by copying adults through play. Every game became a lesson. Every mistake became experience. Every successful hunt became tomorrow's education. Their entire world was a classroom without walls. But perhaps the greatest discovery wasn't hidden in caves or buried beneath ancient camps. It was hidden inside human bones. When scientists compared the skeletons of early hunter-gatherers with the first farming communities, they expected farmers to be healthier. After all, farming sounds more reliable than hunting. Instead, they found the opposite. Many early farmers were shorter, suffered more tooth decay, showed signs of repetitive labor, and often experienced poorer overall health than the hunter-gatherers who came before them. It was one of archaeology's biggest surprises. The invention we often celebrate as the beginning of civilization may have also marked the end of humanity's freest lifestyle. But if ancient humans truly had more freedom than we imagined, what exactly happened? Why did our ancestors willingly abandon a way of life that had worked for hundreds of thousands of years? The answer lies in one discovery so powerful that it permanently changed human history, and it's the reason every alarm clock, office building, paycheck, and Monday morning exists today. The answer begins with one of the most important accidents in human history. Around 12,000 years ago, as the last ice age slowly came to an end, the world itself began to change. Temperatures rose. Forests spread across landscapes that had once been frozen. Wild grains grew in places they never had before, and animals started following new migration routes. At first, humans simply adapted, just as they always had. But somewhere in the Fertile Crescent, a few groups noticed something extraordinary. Seeds that accidentally fell near their camps returned months later as new plants. For the first time in history, people realized they didn't always have to follow food. They could make food grow where they lived. It must have seemed like the greatest discovery imaginable. No more long journeys following migrating herds. No more uncertainty about where the next meal might come from. Build a permanent home. Plant crops. Stay in one place. It sounded like freedom. But it wasn't. It was the beginning of a trade that would quietly reshape humanity forever. At first, almost nothing seemed different. Families planted small fields while still hunting and gathering. Life probably felt easier. There was more food nearby, children no longer had to travel long distances, and communities slowly became larger. But then something happened that nobody could have predicted. Food created population. Population created pressure. More children survived into adulthood, which meant more mouths to feed every year. Those small fields had to become larger. Larger fields required more work. More work demanded permanent routines. Suddenly, food wasn't something you searched for. It became something you had to protect every single day. Crops couldn't defend themselves. They had to be watered, weeded, harvested, and stored. Birds attacked them. Insects destroyed them. Wild animals wandered into the fields at night. Neighboring groups sometimes stole them. For the first time, humans couldn't simply walk away from a bad season. They were tied to the land. Then another unexpected invention appeared: ownership. Hunter-gatherers rarely carried many possessions because everything had to move with them. But farming changed that overnight. Fields had boundaries. Homes became permanent. Grain could be stored for months or even years. And once something could be stored, someone could claim it. That simple idea transformed human society more than almost anything else in history. If this is my field, then it isn't yours. If this is my harvest, then someone has to protect it. Villages needed rules. Rules needed leaders. Leaders needed authority. Authority needed enforcement. Before long, humanity had built something completely new. Governments, taxes, armies, social classes. The seeds planted in those first fields eventually grew into cities, kingdoms, and empires. Ironically, archaeological evidence suggests this new lifestyle wasn't immediately healthier. When scientists examined the skeletons of the first farming communities, they found shorter average heights, more signs of disease, increased tooth decay from grain-heavy diets, and joints worn down by repetitive labor. For thousands of years, our ancestors had traded variety for stability. Life became more predictable, but also more demanding. The freedom to decide what each day would look like slowly disappeared. Instead came planting seasons, harvest seasons, responsibilities, obligations, and eventually something entirely unfamiliar to prehistoric humans, schedules. Over thousands of years, civilization became more advanced than anyone could have imagined. Humans invented writing, mathematics, engineering, medicine, electricity, computers, airplanes, and eventually the technology you're using to watch this video. There's no question that modern life has brought incredible achievements. We live longer. We survive diseases that would have been fatal in the Stone Age. We can communicate across the planet in seconds. In many ways, life has never been safer. But progress often asks for something in return. Somewhere between the first planted seed and the modern office building, humans began measuring success differently. Instead of asking, "Did my community thrive today?" we started asking, "How productive was I?" Instead of gathering around a fire every evening, we gather around glowing screens. Instead of learning from grandparents, many of us barely have time to visit them. We became masters of efficiency while quietly becoming strangers to the lifestyle that shaped our minds for hundreds of thousands of years. Perhaps that's why ancient history feels strangely familiar. When we stand inside a cave covered with paintings created 30,000 years ago, those artists don't feel like aliens from another world. They feel like us. They laughed. They worried about their children. They celebrated victories. They mourned losses. They fell in love. They created music. They told stories beneath the stars. The biggest difference wasn't intelligence. It wasn't creativity. It was the way they spent their time. Maybe that's the real lesson archaeology leaves behind. Human happiness has never depended on having more. It has always depended on belonging, purpose, curiosity, and the people we share our lives with. Our ancestors understood that long before they understood farming, money, or careers. They weren't living in paradise. Life was dangerous, unpredictable, and often brutally difficult. But they also experienced something increasingly rare today, moments that belonged entirely to them. So the next time your alarm pulls you awake before sunrise, before the emails, the meetings, the traffic, and the endless race to stay productive, remember this. For nearly 300,000 years, humans woke up to a different question. Not what do I have to do today, but what kind of day will we create together? Maybe civilization didn't steal our freedom overnight. Maybe it happened one harvest at a time. And perhaps the most fascinating discovery archaeology has ever made isn't buried beneath ancient caves or hidden inside fossilized bones. It's the realization that the people we call primitive may have understood something about being human that we're still trying to rediscover today. Because in the end, ancient humans didn't spend their lives chasing work. They spent their lives chasing life itself.